Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to SM Enlightenment Radio or watching on SM Enlightenment TV. I'm Ayana.
And I'm Jenny.
And we are two healthy chicks providing simple life hacks on this journey to healthy living. How you feeling, Jenny?
Feeling awesome. Feeling great. What's in your mug tonight?
Oh, so, okay. Let me see if I can reach for both. I am double fisting tonight because,
Oh, nice.
I am still, struggling a little bit, but getting better. I'm staying hydrated. So
Nice.
in this one, I have complete hydration and a pomegranate fizz stick. So I need 55 milligrams of caffeine. And then I have some hot tea to warm me up afterwards.
I was going to say, I would never sleep tonight if I had that right now. I'm doing the decaf version of things, the detox tea with the peppermint black. Oh my goodness, it is so good, so good. And I was just saying, I'm so sad it's my last peppermint black, so I'm going to have to reorder some very soon.
Isn't that a sad day? I ran like
so sad.
Maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I got to get back on it.
Uh-huh.
All right.
So good.
So, listeners, we have something special for you tonight. We're going to do things a little differently. We have a wonderful guest that we'll interview throughout the show. We're going to bring her in like immediately. And before I introduce our topic, I'd like to actually introduce the guest. So she's a mother, a former teacher, and a lover of all sports. So if you've been following us for the last 8 episodes, you may have already guessed who it is. Let's welcome Jenny Hardy.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Ayana. This is exciting. I'm so glad to be your guest tonight. Oh, we're so corny.
Yeah, we can be really corny people, but we have a lot of fun.
The cheese is oozing down. If only I actually ate cheese. So, yeah.
So the reason we're doing this like this, you'll see soon enough. I'm going to pick your brain tonight, Jenny, about gluten and living a gluten-free lifestyle and the life-threatening impact to you and your family. So this isn't just like a fad diet or something that you just, let me follow this, and see how this feels. This is something that you've been following for years now. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're doing this like this is because I have a gluten sensitivity, but it's not life-threatening to me. I know that my stomach probably would say something different, but it's not life-threatening, and I don't know half as much about it as you do. So I'm going to pick your brain.
I love it. And I'm excited because let me just say, I could do a whole podcast week after week on living the gluten-free lifestyle. And so this topic is so loaded, and we could cover so many different things, but we'll just pick a place to start and what we can actually cover in one episode tonight together. And so my goal is, one, to give information for those that don't understand and have grown tired of what this whole gluten-free craze is all about, and it's like, what is up with it? Why is everyone offering it? Why are the store shelves lined with it? Why do restaurants so we will cover that. And then 2, also then to give encouragement to those who are living the gluten-free lifestyle, because it can be very difficult. So to do both of those things is what I'm hoping to accomplish tonight.
Awesome. So you know what? Let's just jump into it, because I think that this is going to be a nice little ride for the two of us. Yeah. Only because I remember exactly how I felt when you first mentioned being gluten-free to me. And I was like, oh, no. So that's why I'm, kind of interested to see how this is going to play out. But let's start with explaining to us why someone would want to go gluten-free in the first place. Is it just a fad?
So there is a lot of misunderstanding out there regarding the gluten-free lifestyle. And so a lot of people have gotten caught up in this fad. And I was in that camp, interestingly enough, when I first heard about it too. So it's so funny. Like, I did not know that you say that about, like, oh no, like she's one of those crazy people. Like, that's hilarious to me, because I thought the same thing when I heard about gluten-free living. And like when I did the 30 days to healthy living, and it is gluten-free. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I can do that for 30 days, but that's kind of weird, but whatever. I've never heard of that. And then the people that were sharing about it and telling us about it, they would like share different products or talk about these things they found at the grocery store, this or that. And I'm like, wait a minute, do they live this way? They do this past the 30 days? Like, oh no, like that is crazy. So I'm right there with you. Like, I get it. It is. So there's a process. There's a lot of learning to do. And so I had that same thought, like, oh, this is just a fad. Like, what is this? But the reality is there is a legitimate allergy to wheat, and that exists. And there's also the celiac disease, and there's also non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So let me just start off by explaining what those are, so everyone has the same groundwork to understand and to start from. So the celiac disease, I'm going to start there. So the celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, and it's a very serious autoimmune disease that occurs in genetically predisposed people where the ingestion of gluten leads to damage in the small intestine. So you do have to have the genetic disposition to get this. Then it is also a combination of lifestyle that will basically trigger the switch and turn it on. So it's estimated to affect about 1 in 100 people worldwide. And so there's about 2.5 Americans who are undiagnosed and are at risk for long-term health complications. So I think that's really interesting that we'll kind of come back to in later conversation, that I'm sure that'll be interesting to talk about. But to continue on explaining about what celiac is. So when people who have celiac disease eat gluten, and so what gluten is, it's a protein that's found in wheat, in rye, and in barley. And then their body mounts an immune response that attacks the small intestine. So gluten starts this immune attack on your own body. So these attacks then lead to damage on the villi, which are these like small little finger-like projections that line the inside of the small intestine. And so they are really, really important, but it attacks them and it rubs them off, basically. And so then what these villi do is they cause the nutrient absorption. So when these villi get damaged, then the nutrients cannot be absorbed properly into the body. And so I just want to stop and explain that. So the longer that it goes undiagnosed for these villi to be rubbed off, they can get down to the knobs to different pieces, and so, or different lengths of it. And so in order to truly know if you have celiac disease or not, you need to do an endoscopy to go in and look at it and look at the villi and see where they are. And something that I found out that was really interesting, the edges of these villi, the first part is the dairy sensitivity. So what is often common in people that have celiac, the first thing that they notice is their sensitivity to dairy, because those are rubbed off. And this is what I learned in our process of figuring this out in our family. So I was like, ooh, red light, there's an issue with dairy. And then as they get rubbed down further, so the longer it goes undiagnosed, the more damage you can have done to your body and the less nutrients you are having absorbed into your body, and the more damage overall that you are doing, possibly stunting growth, possibly losing weight, so those types of things. So it's a really interesting thing. And it's a very, very dangerous thing for someone who has celiac. Do you have a question?
Well, yeah, well, not really a question, but that's interesting because, many people, and I can only speak, of course, from my perspective, but in our community, many people start to experience sensitivities to dairy as they get older. And I think that we've just all kind of just normalize, hey, okay, you're getting older, you can't drink milk anymore, you can't have cheese anymore. But maybe it's something, and I mean, I understand it only affects 1% of the population, but how many of us are undiagnosed? So I'm wondering if there's something to that where it's not just a matter of, oh yeah, you're getting up in age, so no more dairy for you.
So, well, it's that. So that can be a trigger thing. It doesn't mean because you are having trouble with dairy, that means you have celiac, but it's one of those trigger things that's interesting to note. But there's also
That's the first step you were saying.
Yes, but there's also a side note to address what you were talking about. There's also, as we age, we do lack the enzyme that breaks down lactose. So we get less of that. So it does make it harder to process dairy. So there's that combined too. So it's a lot of different things. But what you bring up is a really good point that I think we'll definitely chat about throughout this evening, is that there are a lot of undiagnosed digestive issues that do pertain to gluten. So even if you say, I don't have celiac, I don't need to listen to this, like, keep listening, hold on, because there's more coming. So it might not be that you have celiac, because like you said, it is a small percentage. And it's so fascinating to me with our experience that I'll go into more detail about our family and how this has all played out, is that, like, to me, it's a big deal because it's a reality in my family and this is the way we live our life. But it is like a small percentage. It is, quote unquote, a rare disease, but it doesn't negate the severity of it and the importance of it for us to, obviously stay gluten-free. And so just to address it, so celiac is hereditary. Like I mentioned before, you do have to have the genetic predisposition for it. But just because you have the genetic predisposition doesn't mean you're going to get celiac. If you avoid gluten your whole life and never create this autoimmune response, then it won't turn into celiac. But you, likewise, the flip, if you don't have the genetic predisposition, then you aren't at risk for getting celiac. So let's see here. What else? And just, it's interesting to note, though, that celiac disease can develop at any age after people start eating foods or medicines that contain gluten. So it matters with the lifestyle factor. So left untreated, though, celiac disease can lead to additional serious health problems. Some people can have, so just a lot of things, like I had mentioned, about stunted growth, that your intestines not working properly, just a lot of very serious things that can eventually lead to death if it's left unchecked. And then I'll just note also that different people's responses, different people who have celiac respond differently to, like, their issues, their symptoms can all be different, which is a fascinating thing too. Some people develop a rash, some people have diarrhea, some people constipation, some people have bloating, some people have stomach pains, some people have immediate diarrhea, some people but it's all different for every single body. So that is kind of an interesting thing too. And with that, there's different levels of ability. No one can tolerate gluten, but the exposure to it, like some people will not have any products that are made in the same facility that any other gluten is made in. For us, we like anything that is on the same line. You have to really be careful about cross-contamination. So any products like cookies that are made on a line as other, gluten-containing cookies, like we would not be eating in our house because that would not be safe for us. So there's a lot of precautions to take. So that is celiac disease. Then
before you go further, will you actually because I mean, clearly you have a vast knowledge of this. Why? I mean, because this wasn't just spurred by, you know what, let's just go gluten-free. No. So will you tell us how you got here?
Yeah. Okay. So it all started about 6 years ago when I was first introduced to 30 Days to Healthy Living program, a way to do something to improve my health. So I'm like, okay, I'm all about improving my health. I want to eat better. I want to clean up what's going on. So I would love to feel better. That sounds great. Part of that was going, gluten-free, a concept I had never entertained before. So I'm like, all right, very difficult, very hard to do because, I love pretzels and I have my sandwiches and just all this stuff. But I'm like, all right. So from then on, though, I felt better. I realized what gluten was doing to my body by taking it out for 30 days and then seeing what actually happened when I put it back in my body. I'm like, oh, there's something to this. This is really fascinating. This never occurred to me before. And so from that, I gained a lot of recipes of all kinds of different meals. So that's the way I started cooking for my family. So I completely changed at that point the meals that I was preparing for my family. And then I slowly started changing different products that I swapped out the noodles, the spaghetti that we had. Kids didn't even know. If you want to know the brand, I'll let you know. But they didn't even know it. And so I started doing little things here and there, did some research, tried different things out that we liked and things like that. So I was slowly going gluten-free and primarily cooking gluten-free for my family. Because I felt better and I felt it was a healthier way to be from the research and the things I was learning. Fast forward then, because my family was eating this way as well, one summer we went away to family reunion, traveling, things like that. And it was uncontrolled what we were eating, right? We're at the mercy of what was served to us and all this, family reunions, it's all out there. You got everything. So it was awesome. So, but after that, my daughter wasn't feeling well. And so we're like, whoa, what is going on? And so it was several weeks and we're trying everything, we're trying to figure out. And finally one day she just looked at me and she's like, do you think it's the gluten? And I'm like, babe, I think it is. I think that's what we're coming down to. She figured it out.
And how old was she?
She was, how old was she? She was 9, I think at the time, 9 or 10. Yeah. And so that started our process. We went to a GI specialist. And so here's an interesting thing. So for those of you who want to know, so there's the best way to really truly you can do a blood test, but that's not definitive. The only way to really truly test is to do an endoscopy. So you get knocked out, you take the tube down and go look at those villi that I was talking about and see if those are knobbed off. And so to whatever degree that the villi are gone or blunted, as it's called, is the degree, I'm not positive. I think it's stage 1, 2, 3, or 4 of how you're diagnosed with celiac. So that's how you're diagnosed. So she did that. So, and I will say for our personal story, we had already figured out that it was the gluten that was causing it. We just didn't know if she had celiac or not. So we had already taken gluten out mostly, but the problem is you have to be consuming gluten in order to do the endoscopy to really know if you have celiac. So we had to put it back in her diet in order for her to have this endoscopy, which was I'm going to try to that was the hardest thing as a mom to do. I knew it was hurting her but she had to do that. And so, but I'm grateful that we found out that she does in fact have celiac. And so then I know how we have to be 100% sure that she is not having any gluten. So that's how we found out. And then from then on, that was I had already been told by my doctor because of my autoimmune disease that you need to be gluten-free. But I was 95% gluten-free, but that extra 100% was very, very difficult. But once Mama Bear kicked in, I'm like, that's it. Gluten is gone. Done.
Oh, I know that feeling a little over the last few weeks. Yes, I know exactly what that feels like. So what would you say in the few minutes that we have left in the segment, what would you say are some of the difficulties other than the obvious of going gluten-free?
Yeah, so it's I'm looking at it especially through the eyes of my young daughter. And so I will just start off by saying, for anyone that knows children that need to go gluten-free or that are celiac, it's emotionally very difficult because especially for her, here she was she 4th grade? And all of a sudden being told, you can't have gluten. Now, to an adult, you're like, okay, buck up, like figure it out, live a different lifestyle, whatever. That's not the hardest thing in the world, right? But to a kid, like stop and think about that. What are you served in the cafeteria? What is offered every single stinking day for lunch that's on the menu if you so choose? Like we didn't really buy lunch a whole lot, but sometimes it's a treat to do that, right? Think about the birthday parties you go to. What does every birthday party have? Pizza and cupcakes and cake. Oh, I'm sorry, you can go, but you can't eat any of the food. Like
Right.
that's emotionally so difficult. Or, oh, go and take your little container of your food with you. And so, yes, that's what we did. And yes, that's what we had to do. But emotionally, those are hard things to get over. And it's different. I know it's different stages of hard, no matter if that's all you've ever known, but then to have it and to have it taken away and to know what you're missing. So the emotional aspect is definitely very difficult. So socially, that and then just knowing what you had and then trying to find a replacement. I can't even tell you, trying to find a good recipe for gluten-free pancakes. Oh my gosh, like to make sure they're fluffy, to make sure they taste good, like all this stuff. So
it's funny that you say that, because the whole time you were talking, I was thinking about how, because we started eating gluten-free pancakes. For whatever reason, Sykes is not on board. I know for a fact it is mental, because there was one weekend where he did not know that I had swapped it out. He was like, oh, these are the best pancakes you've had. So with that, listen, I couldn't script it if I tried. But yeah, like literally earlier this week, Aaliyah asked me to make those pancakes, and it was a weekday, and I'm like, no, I have to work. Like, okay, Ayana, it's really not that serious. It'll take you like all of 15 minutes, but just delicious. I mean, honestly, some of the best pancakes aside from Daddy's. Yes, no one tops your pancakes, Daddy's. No one. But going to the speaking to the emotional part of it, I can absolutely relate. And it's so bizarre that I can relate, because it's on a much smaller scale. Like, in the past few episodes, I've talked about how Aaliyah, and like the hormones that she's going through at such a young age, and puberty on the horizon. And knowing that it has so much to do with our foods, and we've changed our diet, but just like you said, that's not how she grew up. So now she knows Oreos. Now she knows cereals and things like that. And then when she asks me throughout the week, Mom, can I have one? And it's like that tug of war in me. I can't even think about how it feels to her, but I'm like, I can't tell her no, but I need to tell her no. I get it. It's like an emotional tug of war for both parent and child.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we actually are going to dive a little bit deeper when we come back. So just make sure you stick around. Again, this is not just about celiac disease specifically. This is about anyone who is just not feeling great in their gut. Stick around. We have more to share. Welcome back. I'm Ayana.
I'm Jenny.
And we are two healthy chicks here on SM Enlightenment Radio. And we are talking about living a gluten-free life. So, Jenny, when we left off, we talked about celiac disease, but what about the non-celiac gluten sensitivities?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because we did focus on celiac in the beginning in the first half. And so I definitely want to bring this up and share about this. So then there's also the non-celiac gluten sensitivity, as you said. So symptoms of this have a huge range of things. It can be bloating, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, headaches, migraines, like there's our bloating, not feeling good, tiredness, skin problems, including rashes, psoriasis, depression, weight loss, iron deficiency, anemia, anxiety, autoimmune disorders, joint and pain, joint and muscle pain, leg or arm numbness, brain fog. So these are all things that can happen as a result of a person doesn't actually have celiac, but they do have things that result in they have reaction to gluten. So even though you
essentially the entire rest of the population.
okay, basically. Yes, we're saying even though you don't have celiac, you can still react to gluten. So it's worth it to find out if you do react to gluten. If you've never figured this out, we highly encourage you to take gluten out for 30 days and then put it back in and just really see. Because so many times, a lot of us are so quick to say, "Oh, well, I don't have an issue with it. Oh, what is this bad?
Right.
Oh, this thing." But until you do it, you don't know. Don't knock it, because that's what I did. That's what you did. That's what we all do, right? Because it's so much a part of our lifestyle and our diet. Like when you try to start getting away from it, you realize how hard it is because it's in everything. It's crazy, really wild. So those are the kinds of symptoms that you have with a non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Like you said, pretty much like everybody else. But I did want to point out one other category that it is different from a wheat allergy. So a wheat allergy, you can have an immediate reaction that requires medical attention due to its life-threatening symptoms. So that's something like anaphylaxis, like that type of reaction that you might have to the wheat in a product or in something. So there's that as well. So I did want to point that out. And so going back to the non-celiac gluten sensitivity, like you said, the thing is that, like we were just saying, gluten is in everything. It's not in everything, but it's in a lot of things, and it's hard to get away from. But then there's a lot of foods that just have contaminants in them. And it's a lot of like products that have gluten in them, but they're just junk. Is a highly processed food. I'm thinking about like cereal and about a lot of the pastas and pasta meals and things like that are just highly processed. Yes, they have gluten too, but you have a lot of multiple issues in those containers and in those boxes.
Yeah. So speaking of those like pastas and prepackaged things, like what are some of the pitfalls to avoid when going gluten-free?
So yeah, very good question. And so the thing is don't there's an interesting thing. Don't assume that things that seem like they should be gluten-free are actually gluten-free. Like I remember having this conversation with like my mom and with different people. They're like, the carrots, like, aren't the carrots gluten-free? I'm like, yeah, you would think, but you would be surprised because then there's a lot of companies that will line the bags of things that are gluten-free naturally, but they'll line the bag with gluten-containing ingredients for whatever reason. Don't ask me why, but they do. So things like it just seems so ridiculous to think like, why would there even be gluten in that? But for me, for someone that has celiac in their household that is buying for sure certified gluten-free products, I look for that certification. I look for that seal. So I don't make assumptions because I've seen too many crazy things. So that is the next thing, is like when you have celiac or a definite allergy, like that gluten-free certification is key, is gold when you're looking at things. So for example, some odd things that have gluten in them that you wouldn't expect. Okay. Twizzlers. Yes. Twizzlers.
I laugh because that's Sykes' favorite snack. I'm going to throw him all the way under the bus here. You know, the family size pack that you can get at any, Price Club or in a weekend. Gone.
Cool. Wow. That's impressive.
Now, I will say he doesn't do it often. It's not like it's an every weekend thing, but if I buy it, it's gone. I digress. Continue.
That's awesome. So yeah, so we are not binging on Twizzlers in our house, just saying. Seasonings. You would be surprised.
Yeah.
Seasonings, they will put gluten in it.
Well,
Envelopes.
wait, I'm going to pause you right there because, and I mean, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but you mentioned seasonings, and it triggered something that I learned about recently. Wood chips in seasonings, like, okay, so I see the smile on your face. You know what I'm talking about. And when I said it to someone else, they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But it really makes a difference where you purchase your seasonings, what brands you buy. Like, who would think wood chips? There's wood chips in shredded cheese. And
I was just going to say that. Yep.
What are we doing? What are we doing? And then to go back to, you were talking about carrots being in a bag that's lined with gluten. Like, it's not so far, it doesn't make sense, but it's not so far-fetched, because when I stopped eating pork, because you can find that everywhere, it's not quite like gluten, you can pretty much pick it out most of the time, because there's tons of things that are made with pork as you wouldn't even believe. But you don't have beef sausage or turkey sausage in a pork casing. What, help me understand. Like, I don't. So that is not far-fetched. It makes zero sense, but it's not far-fetched.
Okay, so I will, going along that, since you took us down this crazy path, I will go even further on this crazy path. Since
the woods.
Okay, so here's another one that I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This is beyond insane. But this is another thing that I learned in this whole process, is that, okay, meat is another thing that you'll be like, oh, for sure, buying a hunk of meat would be gluten-free, would it not? So, well, not necessarily, because you see there's this little practice that goes on that you look at like a steak and it looks like it's just one piece of steak, right? One thing. And, but in reality, what they did was they took pieces of meat and they took these little tiny pieces of tape and taped the pieces together to make it look like one piece of meat. And what is lining that tape? Gluten. So there's that.
So is the tape edible?
Yes, you don't even know it's there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What?
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's like when it is mind numbing when you start digging and you start understanding what is really in our foods, what the processes are, what is going on. It is like, I would rather not know sometimes, but I mean, like, okay, so even just,
and then it also makes me wonder, because this entire episode I've had in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to like continually be known as this person that's like bashing Americans and what is in our food. But this is all I've been thinking the entire episode. Would you find that practice in Europe?
Yeah.
Would you like, you definitely aren't going to find it in any probably, I would imagine. Of course, I can't speak to this 100%, but I can't imagine that you would find it anywhere on the continent of Africa. Like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I don't get why it's okay.
Yeah. And see, and that's the thing. And that's why having shows like this and just having a conversation with people and people listening and conversing with us and sharing with us and sharing this information with other people is what makes a difference. Because like, I didn't know these things until I needed to, right? I had a reason to. Like, I was just living my life, doing my American thing, and, just have cereal with milk for breakfast because that's what we all do, and maybe have a bagel with butter on it. And because this is what we do.
In your cereal, you'll be fine.
Yes, exactly. Why would you? Now I'm learning, I'm like, I need to start my day with protein. Protein is more important to me. Like, I need to keep that sustained energy instead of the sugary carbs. And so there's just so much to it, like health-wise. And so as we learn, once you know these things, you can't unknow them. So like, and once I know them, then I feel obligated to share them, which is why we're doing this, which is why we're having a podcast. And it's to let you know, like, what could your life feel like? What could you do better? Once you know these things, and once you have an understanding of what life is like for someone who has celiac, or what life is like when you take gluten out and put it back in and see what it does to you. And we're not necessarily saying don't eat gluten for the rest of your life. But what we're saying is take it out, take the time to take it out of your diet, then put it back in and understand what it's doing to your body. Because you might not have any reaction. You might find out that you do experience some bloating. You might, because here's my reality. And Ayana, you can share yours. I know you've shared it in a lot of other episodes about your experiences, but my experience was I had a lot of digestive inside issues going on my whole entire life. I knew it. I was uncomfortable. I was not regular. I didn't feel good, but I kept asking for help, but no, just have more fiber, drink more water, eat more greens. Like that's all I was ever told until I finally was. And literally it was until my kids started having these issues. I took dairy out and that was my first like aha moment. I'm like, this is what life can be like. I feel amazing. I didn't know you could feel this good. But the thing is, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like I would see all these commercials for Metamucil and fiber. And I'm like, why are there so many commercials for fiber on TV? You know, but like now I know because Americans have digestive issues. I just heard UConn has like, I think it's UConn, like they're opening up this huge digestive hospital here, like just or like research center, whatever, like just got announced. I've heard it, and I'm just like, you know, here it is. Like we're finally like there's real digestive issues in America, and like let's stop and look at why is this? And I firmly believe, based on my personal experience and based on research I've done, our diet has so much to do with it. You change your diet, you change your health, you can change your life. And this is one place to look at. You might be having an issue with gluten and not even realize it. And so that's the point of tonight, is to educate you on those possibilities, not just to learn about celiac, because I know celiac only affects a small percent, but these are reasons why you are seeing so much gluten-free things pop up, why you're hearing more about it, because people are having real issues.
Right. Yeah, that's, you know, it's lovely to hear that, you know, there is a healthcare facility that's coming just focusing specifically on digestive health because, you know, like we've said in many episodes before, 80% of disease can be found, you know, in the gut. It stems from the gut. So this is like our kind of our gut brain, so to speak, you know? But it is still somewhat frustrating. And I guess this is the difference between like focusing on the glass being half full and the glass being half empty. It's like, great. After generations of poisoning us, now let's take a look and see what's going on and what's harming us and what we can do about it. And will we do anything about it? Or again, that's a whole nother episode, but is it more profitable to not do anything about it? I digress.
But that is agreed. And that is also where the education as a consumer and then where we put our money goes matters. So if we start choosing gluten-free products, if we start choosing more green leafy vegetables and fruits and like if this is what we start showing demand for, then things will change. But it has to come from the consumers, but we have to be educated first. And that's what we are trying to do, is help educate people.
Absolutely. I literally earlier this week posted a quote from the book that we were reading in our book club. And it was about why should you buy organic? And I have never taken the time to actually look it up and figure it out. I just felt like, okay, you know what? I probably should be buying organic, so I'm going to do that. And yes, it costs more, but I'm just going to believe that this is better for my family, better for me. And of course, you know, I stay throwing Sykes under the bus. I really do love you, baby. Like, I'm not like, I'm not just being mean, but he frequently will say, does it really matter? And now I actually know that it does, because just like you said, where we put our money matters. Buying organic forces other plants and farms that have these genetically modified plants and everything to produce less. Buying organic creates better soil. There's a whole, whatever. Yes.
Yeah. That's a whole other episode.
It is. And I think we have another idea for season 2, because we are all booked for season 1, just so you know.
A lot of good stuff coming up.
So you told us some of the pitfalls. Now, of course, we like to end on a cheery note. give us some tips on how to succeed transitioning to a gluten-free lifestyle, because it can be, just like you said, an emotional issue, and the transition can be difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So the first thing is definitely have a mental commitment. So I mentioned my commitment was kind of ish there, but then when my daughter was diagnosed with celiac, that was like, that's it, 100%, like Mama Bear's in town and like we're going at this. So whatever your level of commitment is, be mentally committed, make that commitment to choosing better products, to choosing better things, to having a better, healthier lifestyle. And so I would also suggest to connect with other people that are like-minded. So whether that's in Facebook groups or finding actual real life friends that think the same way, that are doing the same thing, people who are committed to the gluten-free lifestyle, and enlist their help as much as possible. And then just experiment with different brands to find the ones that you like. I would caution you with going hog wild on everything, all the gluten-free brands, because again, then you're getting into a lot of processed foods as well. But at the same time, like it's nice to have that alternative. And especially with kids, it's nice to have the gluten-free cookie or this or that. But I wouldn't say it's like to have that all the time. It's nice to have on the go, but just experiment and find out the ones that you like. Get different cookbooks. My daughter loves to bake and loves to cook. And so we've gotten her gluten-free, dairy-free cookbooks, and she is an amazing baker. So
I've seen some of those recipes. They're very impressive.
Yes.
I mean, it's coming from someone who might bake like once or twice a year, but that's not the point. I can recognize talent.
I mean, she even did chocolate shavings, and we didn't even have anything to do the shavings. Like, I'm like, I don't know how you did that. I've never done that. So, and I love to bake. So I'm like, she's so good. So, another thing I would say is, get some apps that are helpful. So I will recommend 2 apps, the Gluten-Free Scanner and Find Me Gluten-Free. So with a gluten-free scanner is I have it on my phone, and when I'm in the store, I can scan the barcode of a product, and then, it tells me if there's possible gluten contaminants in it or not. So that is a really helpful thing. So yeah, in summary, just find your go-to brands, find your go-to people, find those restaurants that are clear. Definitely seek me out. I can give you tons of tips and tons of ideas. But just overall, I really ask you to be understanding and encouraging of those who are gluten-free. Many might not be doing it by choice, and perhaps even you even might have an issue with it, and you just might simply be unaware. Who knows? So just be kind and understanding to those that are committed to or trying out the gluten-free lifestyle.
Yeah, this is not like, keto or some of the other fad diets. This is not always a choice. But can you repeat those apps? You said gluten-free.
Gluten-free scanner, GF scanner. It's red and white. And then Find Me GF.
Okay, awesome.
The 2. Yeah.
All right. And we will actually add that to our Facebook page, which is a perfect segue. We have a brand new Facebook page, in case you were not aware, which means you didn't hear the last 3 episodes. So you might want to go back and catch up on those, because they are really, really good.
Yes.
Of course, we may be a little biased. Our Facebook group is called 2 Healthy Chicks, and that's 2 with the number. Mm-hmm. So not the word, number 2. And it's just like our name. It's a VIP group. So we have a call to action for you today. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is 2 steps. Once again, this is becoming a theme with us now. Yes. Share one aha moment from today regarding the gluten-free lifestyle. And 2, share whether or not you are currently living the gluten-free lifestyle or have experimented with it, because we'd love to get your feedback. Tell us about it again in our Facebook group, 2 Healthy Chicks with the number 2. And I mean, you'll just find other people like yourself that are taking steps to put healthy habits little by little into our lives. And, just like at the top of the show, I mentioned how I kind of looked at you sideways when you said gluten-free. It wasn't so much that I thought you were crazy for mentioning that. I just thought the idea of me ever attempting something like that was crazy. Because I'm like, you know what? I barely have time to cook a meal, period. I might cook twice a week. So yes, and this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm so glad that we talked about this during this episode, because it is a scary topic. And I don't mean scary like, ooh, boogeyman scary, but you hear it and you automatically dismiss it because the potential of it just being such a daunting topic is there. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate your expertise, and I appreciate you sharing your story with our guest with me. Always learn something new. So our APOD product of the day, it is, what is it, Jenny?
It is the Arbonne 30 Days to Healthy Living.
Yes. So 30 Days to Healthy Living is a program that offers support, accountability, and the point is to successfully, as you can see on the screen, successfully create habits that can become a healthy lifestyle. You get everything you need for 30 days, including a coach like us to help you make those changes. If you're on Facebook, you get to join a community of over 3,000 people who are on the same journey. So talk about accountability. Like, this isn't just like, oh, I have a gym partner. Your gym partner gets sick. You're probably not going to go to the gym. No, there's 3,000 other people there to be like, nope, let's go. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So again, that's if you're on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, don't worry. You can still get the information because we are here for you. So not only will you have us as a coach, but you also in that community have a number of other consultants that are always there and ready. So what I'd like you to do, and this is to the listeners, ask yourself if you experience any of the following. And I'm going to go through these somewhat slowly so you can actually reflect on whether or not you experience these. Because many times we normalize and don't acknowledge these feelings. All right? You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Bloating. I'll wait. You've gotta watch it. Like, if you're listening to it, you actually have to watch it also. The overlays are hilarious. Feeling foggy. Constipation and or diarrhea. Craving sugar. Craving caffeine. Food cravings. Again, the photos crack us up. Our producer is on it. Food cravings, especially those fake processed foods. Like, gotta have those onion rings. Gotta have one. Yeah, definitely want to catch this one in the visual. Not able to sleep through the night. I can probably count so many. I'm not even just going to, so many people. Mm-hmm. Probably more people that I know than not have trouble through the night. Lacking energy. Feeling anxious. Skin concerns. And unwanted weight. Now, if you did not find at least one of those symptoms that you are experiencing, if you didn't find anything in that list, number one, you don't live in this country, or number two, you are already on the 30 days to healthy living. One of the two, because otherwise it's just impossible as far as I'm concerned. But, I could do that. So the reason I list those is because this is exactly what the 30 days addresses. Like, this is essentially an easy button to bring more health into your life. And the program can show you how great you were meant to feel. And I'm so emphatic about it because, yes, Jenny, as you mentioned, I talked about this in earlier episodes. I know what I was feeling like. I know, and I actually experienced it again this past weekend because I ended up having to actually take medication that I have not had in over a year, in addition to how healthy I've been over the past few months. And on top of that, I ended up having an awful meal because we ended up at a restaurant that we didn't plan on being at. Mm-hmm. And it was too much for my system. I spent all weekend in the bed. It was terrible. So yeah, This program will literally show you how great you were meant to feel. And I will get off my soapbox now.
But it's amazing. Yeah.
It is. Random fact. Jenny, what you got?
All right. So since we've been talking gluten-free all the time, I'll go back to the days before I was gluten-free. And just saying, my favorite snack growing up, even in college, was Cheez-Its and Goldfish. Oh, yes. I mean, my parents would send me with a big thing of goldfish. Yes, goldfish. Oh my gosh. They are not only, they would send that with me to college. Like, it is not only for toddlers. I mean, we even were talking with a random mom about it in the Target aisle in Target the other day, like about Cheez-Its. So that's my blast from the past, but those days are done.
Yeah, yes, we had a Cheez-It versus Cheez-Nit thing in our household growing up.
Cheez-It all the way.
Yeah, no, if mom came home with cheese nips, it was a problem. Like,
that is a problem.
I get you. I got it. Yep, I'm right there with you. All right, mine, again, since we were talking about a gluten-free lifestyle, my random fact is that when I was in elementary school, I loved Twinkies. So those things that have like, yes, you can see the picture there, that have the shelf life of like Noah.
1,000 years.
Yeah. Things that you should not be putting in your body. Nothing should last that long. And in the words of our producer, the great Doc P, those things will last longer than the houses in which we live. Just saying, there is. So those are our random facts. Jenny, once again, I thank you for being so open today. Thanks for shedding a little bit of light on living gluten-free. I mean, I know that we can talk more and more and more about it, but we really hope that you've gotten a few nuggets from our conversation today, as usual.
I hope it's been helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate you. So I am Ayana.
And I am Jenny.
And we are two healthy chicks providing simple life hacks on this journey to healthy living. Thanks for listening to us on SM Enlightenment Radio. Have a great whatever you're having.
Have a great night. Bye.